Well, good afternoon. This is section 7.2, circle graphs. What I want you to do is go ahead and hit pause and copy this down, and we'll discuss it a little further. So go ahead and do that. Well, first of all, it says a circle graph is used to compare data that are parts of a whole. Okay, compare data that are parts of a whole is what you are trying to do, which is the same thing that we have when we're dealing with our percentages. They are parts of a whole. So this percent, since this whole circle is going to represent 100%, our parts are each of these different wedges that are created, or slices when we talk about pizza, the slices that they create. And those again are all parts of one whole, which add up to 100%. When we take our percentages and add all those together, yes, they must add up to 100%. Okay, so let's look at our next screen and we'll answer some questions that are referring to this type of information. It says, first of all, landfills. Which item is found most in the United States landfills? Go ahead and hit pause and answer that. Well, as we look at this, it says again, which item is found most in the United States landfill? You are looking for the number with the highest percentage, and paper is that highest percentage with 30%. Okay, so you would simply write paper. Now number two says which item or items is or are found the least in the U.S. landfills. So go ahead and hit pause and solve that. Well, since we look at all these, there is only one, or there is one that specifically stands out that is smaller than all the rest, which is 6. So in this case, it would be rubber and leather are the least amount. Okay, rubber and leather at 6%. Okay, now if there was another one on here that had the same amount of the percentage of 6%, then we would also add that to it as well. Number 3, which two sections represent items that are found about the same amount in the U.S. landfills? So go ahead and hit pause and solve that. Now, when they are saying about, okay, which two sections represent about the same amount in the landfill, they don't have to be exact, but many times they will be very, very close, within a percent or two. So when we look at these comparisons, the two that stand out that are the closest to one another would be the 6% and the 8%. So the metal and then rubber and leather. So I'm going to write the percentages just for time's sake. But you would need to write out metal, and then you can write out rubber and leather for those as well. Now you might say, well, I think you feel that 8 and 11, they're only 3 apart, that those would be about, and that they are in some regards. But again, we are looking at the ones that are the absolute closest to each other, and those are only 2 away. No others are that distance. So that would be your answer to number 3. And number 4, how does the amount of food and yard waste compare to the amount of rubber and leather in the U.S. landfills? So go ahead and answer that question. Go ahead and hit pause. Now when we look at this, again, we're looking at food and yard waste compared to the amount of the rubber and leather in the U.S. landfills. We're looking at these percents. Okay, and we look at 11% and the 6%. And when we do that, we are trying to say, all right, how many times is it difference from one to the other? So we're going to look at our smaller unit of measurement, our smallest percentage, I should say, and compare it to that 11%. And again, it is about, you're being close. And the difference, well, if we were to double our 6%, that would give us 12%. So it's very, very close. 12% is to 11%. So you can say that it is that rubber and leather is about half that amount, or you can also reverse that and say that food and yard waste is about double or twice the amount that rubber and leather are. So probably the best answer to this is that, and again, it's saying to compare food and yard waste to the amount of rubber and leather. So since it says food and yard waste, we're going to refer from that first and say that, well, it is almost double the 6%. So about 2 times the amount. Okay, so about 2 times the amount is the answer to this, that food and yard waste is about double or twice the amount, 2 times the amount of the rubber and leather. Okay, that's what they're asking for questions with number 4. Next question. It says sketch a graph to display the data. So what you want to do is we want to look at these percentages. And for these percentages, kind of give them an estimate of where this would be on our graph. And some things to think about as you do this is think about your halfway point, okay, and base it off of that, which halfway would give me 50% and 50%, okay. Another one to look at is 25%. This is 25%. And gauge it off of that. So if it's less than 25%, then you can gauge it by cutting a little bit off, okay, and so forth. So go ahead, I'm going to erase these lines, and I'm going to let you go ahead and see if you can place these according to their percentages on this graph. And again, they all add up to 100%. So go ahead and take a few minutes and hit pause and do that. Well, the first thing I would do is look for those numbers like the 25%. Those are the easy ones to create. So we can take this, make a right angle, and know that this is 25%. Okay? And you would need to write this in there as well. And I'm trying to, my pen's not working. That's why you're seeing me write. There it goes. And then you can write baseball in here for that. Now, for the next one, I know that from here to here is 25%. From here to this side, we're going to be a little bit less than that. So I'm going to basically draw that, and then I can go in here and I can erase those lines. And that this would be then our 20%, and it is golf. So that's done and that's done. And then my next one, I'm trying to figure out a 45%. Well, if I know that my line here to there, that's going to all be 50%. I need to take about 5% off of that, which is going to give me a distance of about like this. And then I can erase this line in here. And baseball would be 45%, or excuse me, basketball. And then the difference, what should be left over, is about 10%. And if we recall, our line going through here, that was taking 5% off, and that's taking 5% off, which gives me a total of 10%. So there is my softball. So yours should look very similar to what you have listed here. Now yours could, maybe you put basketball up top or maybe over here. These could all be shifted around. They don't have to be in that particular order. You just need to be looking at the wedge itself, that it matches up to yours, to be very, very close to that. Now there is a technical way of doing this, and we will be discussing more of that when we get into our graphs and charts that we will be working on later this school year, to where you can actually take, since there's 360 degrees, you can take 10% of 360, and that'll give you the actual degrees, and we'll use a protractor to graph it. So there are some more detailed and specific ways to doing it, but we're not going to do that yet for this particular lesson. Okay, so hope you have a great day, and any questions or any comments, certainly write those down. We'll discuss them further tomorrow. Have a great evening.